Good afternoon and welcome to Driver's Ed today. Remember to sign in under the comments for YouTube live and to also text me that you are here. We'll wait as we normally do for people to come into the group meeting. This is going to be our last week. Welcome. Good afternoon. While we wait for people, hopefully the connection will be a little bit better. I updated my Wi-Fi this past weekend, so the downloading and uploading of information should be a little bit smoother. So I'm hoping that will add to the experience here, so it won't be quite as bad. Remember to text me or to make a comment if you can't hear me or if a video is not playing. I want to make sure that you've got use of the information here. So I see the thumbs up, so that's good that everything seems to be working well. So hopefully you had a great weekend, treated your mom right. We'll see how things go this week. Maybe I'll have some additional information for you about driving. But to talk a little bit about, and I'll do this at the end too, so I'm just going to bring this down a little bit lower. We will be collecting the textbooks on Saturday. So please write down in your notes that Saturday at 9:30 you will meet me at the high school. Please have all the notes taken out of your textbook. And I will also have an observation sheet that I'm going to hand out to you that your parents will need to sign, indicating that you've done the 6 hours of observation with your parents. So I've worked on that form today, and I think I'm going to hand that out on Saturday. Look through the sheet that I provided. This gives us the list of what we're covering in class. So since you can view your feed to me with text messages, you should know what you haven't sent in and what you have. As I stated last week, incomplete material will have to be handed in. I will also use the incompleted information or work to gauge when we're going to drive. So those of you that have done everything that I've asked of you will be getting top priority for drive times once we start driving. But like I told you at the beginning of this class, there's probably about 130 hours that are sitting out there from the previous class before you. And you're going to get top priority once they're finished over the class that's going to be starting next week, which is really kind of odd for me to be saying that I'm going to be teaching another class. But things do have to move on. People only have a short window during the summertime to get things completed, because once school starts in the fall with sports and jobs, it gets to be complicated. So that is the only reason why I'm continuing on giving you the option to have the class taken care of. But everybody understands that driving is going to be a long process. So we'll try to get to that as early and best we can once the state lifts any type of sanction from us. So that's what we have going on today. So please get out a blank piece of paper and something to write with. Today's kind of a laid back, easy day to talk about really three topics. We're going to be talking about sharing the road with semi, tractor, trailer trucks, motorcycles, and we are getting into the season where people are going to choose to leave their vehicle at home and either get on a motorcycle or a bicycle. So it's going to be a lot today on being on the highway with these large trucks. What is it like in around town with motorcycles and bicycles? What are some of their training procedures that they have to go through in order to get a commercial driver's license or a motorcycle license, and also what are the requirements of a bicyclist if they're going to share the road with vehicles. And a lot of people tend to forget that bicycles must follow the same rules that automobiles do. Now, just to start today off on a humorous note, I found this many, many years ago at a conference. So this was passed around with a lot of driving instructors. It's a little comedy sketch about being on the highway and not being aware of your surroundings. You should always be using your mirrors to know what's going on. And it also talks a little bit, well, it doesn't talk. There's really no talking going on. It also covers, you'll see, road rage. And we're going to be getting into distracted driving and road rage tomorrow and Wednesday. So that will kind of wrap things up on subjects that we're going to be covering. So take a look at this.
LAX, this is AM 117, have you requesting emergency approach? AM 117, coming about to 175 and proceed to 3,000 feet. Roger that, LAX. We're not going to be able to make that approach. We're having trouble maintaining altitude.
Shaping up to be a rough commute out there today. Watch for an accident on the 101 near Sherman Way. And we're just getting word that the 405 southbound has been shut down completely. Looks like some sort of police activity's got it cleared for a 2-mile stretch from the 118 all the way up to Victory. As soon as we get more information, we'll let you know. But in the meantime, we'll get you through with another 40 minutes of your favorite hits on KCTV.
Okay, a couple of things struck me as a little bit funny. Maybe it's just my sense of humor. Is that here's an individual on a LA highway and not understanding that there's nobody else on the highway. If there's nobody else on your side of the highway, you should be looking around. Something is happening, whether they've shut it down with the police that are looking for somebody. Now, of course, it's kind of, facetious that an airplane would land on a highway, although it has happened before. And then I kind of like the old lady that wasn't even aware of what was going on, and she was so upset at that young man that went by her like that, and she showed her disgust with her hand signal at him. And you're going to find when you're driving on the highway, people may not understand why you're doing what you do. You could cut somebody off, follow too closely because you're getting pushed, and people aren't going to be happy with you. So road rage is very, very common on the highway, and we're going to see that tomorrow or Wednesday. So I thought that was just kind of a funny way to lead into today's topic. So hopefully you got a chuckle. So let's take a look at sharing the road with tractor trailers, motorcycles, and bicycles. Okay, the first thing I want you to understand is that the tractor trailers that are out on the roadway have to be on the highway. A lot of times they're regulated to where they can drive. Now, of course, they want to get to where they want to go a lot quicker. They want to get there safer. So we put a lot of semi-tractor trailers up on a highway. It gets to be overwhelming, and especially for a new driver, because you could have a tractor trailer on all four sides. You feel like you're being closed in on, and you've got that claustrophobic feeling, and your position will start to change where you get too close to one or the other, depending on your perspective where you are on the roadway. So let's just talk about what are some of the characteristics of a tractor trailer. First of all, they're extremely long, 120 feet. So when you do pass one, it's going to take some time to get all the way past. The thing about the weight, the 80,000 pounds, this is what I want you to write down in your notes. And this is the third bullet here. Their stopping distance is 3 times that a normal vehicle will need to stop. So if you cut back in front of a large tractor trailer, there's a good chance you could get hit from behind. If you jump back in front of them and use your brakes a little bit more than you normally would use for stopping, because they can't stop the way that we do. Right down, they make wide turns, and that should be in town. This is why we have the display stop lines. This is why they're swinging out to the left before they make a right turn. Now, they don't make wide turns for lefts. Really, the wide turns we're talking about here are for right-hand turns. When they're in town, at a traffic light or a stop sign, their starting speed will be slow. So don't get right on the back end of a tractor trailer and expect him to move the way you want him to move. It's going to be a slow, gradual increase of speed because he's carrying a heavy load. Now, the no zones that we've talked about, you should already know, are the blind spot areas that you're not traveling in. So it is a blind spot, but we're talking about lingering and staying in that area for, let's say, 30, 40 seconds. You're trying to move out of that area. Okay, let's see from the experts. So this is provided by a tractor trailer company. And a lot of the drivers that I've seen at conferences that drive tractor trailers always complain about people that don't understand the capabilities of a tractor trailer. And they're making all these mistakes. And they go, don't you train young drivers how to handle themselves around us? Don't they understand we've got a full load? We can't stop like they can. We pick up our speed gradually. We make those wide turns. Just the things that we talked about. So here's a tractor trailer company that provided a training video for young drivers.
Hello, my name is Ralph Garcia, and I'm a professional truck driver with 37 years experience on the road with 3.5 million miles of safe driving. Today, you're going to have the opportunity to hear firsthand from professional truck drivers how to maneuver around a truck safely. First of all, let's go over some tips before we get started. Never cut in front of a truck. Give us enough room. Second, stay out of the blind spots around the truck. Third, have enough cushion behind us. Don't follow too closely so you have enough time to stop. Also, trucks make wide right turns. Give us enough space to do those turns. And if you break down on the side of the road, make sure you get far enough off the road that you're safe. And last but not least, distracted driving. Don't text and drive. Stay off that phone. Let's get started, and we're going to hear from our drivers.
Hey, I'm Alan Boyd. I've been driving trucks professionally for 35 years. I know I don't look that old, right? Scratch that, don't answer. What I've learned is the right side of this truck is the largest blind spot we have. This blind spot can actually go over 3 lanes wide. I can lose a whole tractor and trailer. So it's very important when you get in this position to get yourself out as quickly as you can. Did you know that 35% of all car-truck related accidents, the car is in the truck driver's blind spot? Well, it's true. And how do you know that you're in the blind spot? In this position, it's very important to make sure you can see that driver's smiling face in the mirror. If you can't see that truck driver's smiling face in the mirror, he can't see you. Remember, when that truck moves over to the left lane to let you off a ramp, that brings you out into this position, and that's okay. Make sure you slow down a little bit, allow the truck time to get back in front of you. That allows everybody to pass on the left where it's a lot safer. Remember to make good decisions when you drive.
Hi, I'm Alfonso Lewis. I've been a professional truck driver for 28 years. Have 1.4 million safe driving miles. And today I want to talk to you about the rear blind spot of a tractor trailer. First of all, I want to tell you where I do not want you. I don't want you tailgating me. You know why? If I make a sudden stop, guess where you may end up? It's right here. I don't want you there. One other thing, I'm a big guy and I drive a pretty big truck. If there's an object in the road, I can straddle it. And if I straddle it and it comes out and you don't see it, you will not have time to react. Think about that object as an alligator. You don't want that alligator to bite you. So I want you 20 car lengths behind me where I can see you. If you can see my mirror, you're in a safe spot where I can see you and you can see me. And that's where I want you at.
Hello, my name's Don Biggerstaff. I'm a professional truck driver. I've been in the industry for 37 years and have accumulated 1.4 million safe driving miles. And I'm here today to tell you about one of the blind spots that we have on the truck. The left side, the driver's side. We see you best out of this side from our vantage point in the truck. And this is the side that we want you to pass us on. But I need to make it clear, we do have a small blind spot located about where this car is, right behind the driver's seat in the truck. If you're in this position, we could lose you in our mirrors and not see you. So if you find yourself in this spot beside the truck, we want you to safely maneuver on around us. That keeps us safer and you safer. And really, that's what the Share the Road program is all about.
This is the front end of the truck. The worst thing you could do is cut in front of a truck. Rule of thumb, look in your rear view mirror, and when you can see the whole truck in that mirror, that's the time to come over. That usually puts you 10 car lengths in front of our vehicle. Your car usually weighs 4,000 pounds, and fully loaded, this semi could weigh up to 80,000 pounds. And going 60 miles an hour, it could take the length of a football field and 2 end zones to stop.
So what you're telling me, Ralph, then is that if I'm driving a 4,000 pound car, that'd be 20 times my weight.
That's right.
That'd be like a 200-pound wrestler wrestling a man weighing 4,000 pounds.
Exactly, kind of like me wrestling you.
As a professional driver, I use every means possible to see out of my vehicle. Of course, I don't have the luxury of looking in a rearview mirror like you do in a car, or throwing my arm over the seat and looking at the back windshield. I have to use the tools that's been given me, my windshields and my mirrors, to see what I need to see. That's why this front windshield is so important. It's like my big screen television. It allows me to see what's going on out in front of me. 2 other important tools that I have are my mirrors on each side, outside of the truck. I have my right mirror, which allows me to see a narrow path down the right side of my trailer. However, not 2, 3, and 4 lanes over. The mirror on my left-hand side, with head movement, I can see better out of that one, which is the side we want you to pass us on. No matter what I'm doing, I have to focus on my driving. And that's what we want you to do. If we all stay focused on the highway, it'll be a much safer place for all of us.
Distracted driving is just as dangerous as drunk driving. Distractions in your car could be eating, drinking, could be talking to someone, and most common ones are on your phone or texting. Did you know if you travel 60 miles per hour for 6 seconds distracted, that you have actually went the length of a football field? What we want you to do is concentrate on your job, and that's driving.
You know, we had a lot of fun doing this video, and I hope you got the understanding that we're very proud of our record and we're very passionate about safety. And we've interjected some humor to make it fun. However, when you're driving, there is one place that you absolutely must keep your focus, and that's in a construction zone. You know, a construction zone is simply a temporary inconvenience for a major improvement. You know, those guys that are working on that road are working on that road for one reason, and that's to make the highway safer. There's a couple things you need to remember when you're going into a construction zone. Number one, always obey the speed limit. That speed limit is set in place for everybody's safety. Also, the solid white lines are there so that nobody crosses that solid white line. It's very important never to tailgate, and especially not in a construction zone. Because in construction zones, things happen quickly. And the last thing you want is to run into the back of somebody because something happened in front of them. Remember, every one of those construction workers are mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and they all want the same thing that you and I do. And no matter who you are, whether you drive a truck, drive a car, or work in that construction zone, everybody's goal is to make the most important trip, the trip home, safely.
One of the most important things that they mentioned in the video I want you to write down is that when you're directly behind a large semi-tractor trailer truck, you've got to make sure that you can see their side mirrors. If you can see their side mirrors, they can see you. The other thing to remember is that these vehicles cannot travel in the left lane. They've got to be in the middle lanes or the far right. So for you staying in the middle lane, and also with you got to be careful about being in the left lane for too long. The far left lane, and I should have mentioned this on the highway lesson last week, that in Massachusetts, so that it's not this way in New Hampshire, but a lot of states are adopting this, is that the far left lane can only be used for passing. It's not for traveling. So once you're in that left lane, you want to get past vehicles and then move back into the right lane, middle lane, move back to the right. Tractor trailers are all going to want to go extremely fast, so be careful the lane that you choose when you've got multiple lanes. You want to find something where you're not going to have to contend with them on a regular basis. Now, one of the things that a lot of driving schools are going towards is having on-hand experience with some of these vehicles. So Walmart, and we don't have it up here in the Northeast, although there is a different trucking company that I haven't used them at Oyster River, but because they need a big parking lot to use, and right after school we just don't have use of one. But they're actually bringing out these large vehicles for students to actually get into the cab, see what a driver sees from their vantage point, and then they take the truck around and they do a few maneuvers so you can see how difficult it is for them for backing up and pulling out of from a stop position and things like that. So this is what that Walmart is doing.
No zone, that's an area around a large commercial vehicle where we have trouble seeing cars and vehicles that's in close proximity. And the idea of this program is to share this knowledge with individuals that may not understand that we have difficulty seeing cars that are maybe right beside us. Never assume that a truck driver can see you. Make sure that you see the truck driver's face, make sure he sees you. If you find yourself on the right side of a tractor trailer, always assume that driver may not see you. And if you assume that and move forward or slow down and get behind him where he can see you, don't hang out in those blind spots. And when you're following the truck, we normally set up a car 65 feet behind the truck. And that represents about 3/4 of a second in travel distance. So if you're following a truck at 65 feet, it looks like a pretty far back, but I can't see you.
Remember the dump truck over on the side?
Yeah.
See it?
Yeah, a bit.
You have to lean forward though, don't you?
Yeah.
We have opportunities like this with the kids to share this type of information with them. It's a first-hand learning experience. when you see something hands-on, you tend to grasp it better. And so we hope that these kids here today will go out on the highways and realize when they're beside that large truck, that driver may not see them. And if a driver can't see them, if he changes lane, it can result in a very severe collision.
It really is a kind of a cool experience. I've done this a couple times at different conferences, and it does kind of change your perspective of what they see. So I find it to be beneficial. So we've already talked about the no zone, so I'm not going to go over that. Let's talk about motorcycles for a little bit. Motorcycles, we're seeing more and more out on the road now that the weather is getting nice. It's kind of sad that they had to cancel Motorcycle Weekend, which is coming up in about a month. But I think eventually, people will start leaving their house and taking rides a little bit more frequently, and nothing better to get on your pedal bicycle or a motorcycle and feel the air going through your hair and kind of clearing your head. So we're going to see more and more of motorcycles and bicycles as we go. So let's talk about some of the things to remember. And what we find too with motorcyclists is that they do at times take on some real risky behavior. And this is actually from New Hampshire, that we had an individual that we stopped going 185 miles per hour on 93. This is another reason why I think you should always, even though highway driving can be boring, you want to be checking your mirrors frequently. Because if you've got someone that's going slow in front of you and you're going to be passing them, if you're not used to checking your mirrors, one of these people on a motorcycle that you're just going to miss because they're so hard to see, and to judge their speed, that you're going to have issues with motorcycles. I don't think I downloaded the lane splitting video. I don't know why I didn't do that. Maybe I'll have to do that for tomorrow. But I want you to write it down. One of the problems in heavy traffic is a term called lane splitting. What that is that motorcycles do not stay in a particular lane. They go on a dotted line. So they make their own lane. They go where they want to go. So this is why it's very common for drivers not to see these motorcycles, because I'm barely moving. I'm going 15, 20 miles per hour in heavy traffic. Why should I be looking in my side mirrors? Well, someone's going to be, coming up on the side of you that you're just not going to see. So let's take a look. Let's see if they're going to give us some. Okay, let's go through some of the facts that I want you to know. It's basically a 50-50 break on who's at fault. When it comes to a motorcycle, automobile driver crash, what we have found when we do reconstructive investigation of what has happened, that it's just about equal. Most people think it's the crazy motorcycle driver. It's not. It's sometimes the crazy automobile driver. So it's about split. Now, this is what I mentioned earlier with bicycles and motorcycles. They do have to do what an automobile driver has to do. They have the same rights and responsibilities. So that means complete stops, making their checks, following distances the same. So anything that we're learning here, you've got to incorporate into riding a motorcycle. Now, this you do need to know for the final is that why are there so many motorcycles getting hit? It's basically these two reasons. One, you can't see them. They're very small, only about 2 feet wide. They blend in with the traffic scene. And the second part I want you to write down is that you think you've got enough time to do something, but you really don't. So you don't judge their speed correctly. So you can't see them, and they go so fast, and we just don't know how fast they're really going. We don't judge their speed correctly. And if you want to write this down, if you really think about it, because like we said, driving has a lot to do with physics. They stop better than we do because of the light weight. They have better use of front braking and rear braking. So a lot of people think I can get close to a motorcycle because they can brake really good. I'd stay back. Because they brake much better than we do. Left turns are going to be a problem. and it's twofold, like we said, that you just can't see them. So you've got to make sure that before you do anything, know for sure that you can make a left-hand turn. So let's take a look at how they're training. Now, remember, when you're getting trained on a motorcycle, they can't really sit on the back. I mean, I guess they could, but that'd be kind of dangerous. So what you're going to see is an advanced training where they're in another motorcycle behind somebody, and they're giving a voiceover explanation of what they should be doing up ahead. So this is how they're training them in the city.
Okay, let's get in the left lane.
You can see that he's behind the motorcyclist. He's telling him what to do. See how he's telling him to stay close to the yellow line?
So let this truck go ahead. Yeah, leave lots of room.
Now, I think the motorcyclist is too close to the truck. Like we saw in the last video. You want to be able
Okay, good. So we got a truck up ahead. Okay, shoulder check, good. Moving away. And then shoulder check back.
Notice he went way over from the center position to the right. Whenever he thinks there's a chance of making a left-hand turn, he is going away from where they're making the turn.
Yes.
So we got a center position.
That move will save your life.
There's a traffic light coming up. He's being told to stay over to the right.
Yeah, so get ready to do it again.
So he goes near the light, he moves over to the right. Just in case the car was going
Excellent.
to go in front.
Perfect. And back. Ah, that's awesome. Perfect.
So basically, you can see that he's being trained as he's driving, and that's kind of an interesting way to do that. We're going to talk about the motorcycle program that we have here. I don't know who asked the question, but I'll try to answer it the best I can. I do not know how many states lane splitting is legal. Just off the top of my head, I'd probably say less than half. And I don't think they allow lane splitting to the left. I think maybe you can drive in the breakdown lane off to the right in heavy traffic. That would probably be the only safe way to do it. But I'm not too positive on that. And I don't know who is asking that question. Okay, turn signals don't automatically go off when you're on a motorcycle. Now, in a car, when we put our signal on, we make our turn, we let the wheel spin back in our hand, we know that the directional will turn itself off. But on a motorcycle, they've got to use their thumb to use their turn signal. So this is what I want you to write down. Turn signals, you have to second guess. So anytime that you see a motorcycle with a directional on, remember what we talked about? Before you pull out in front of somebody, you should answer yes to these 3 questions. Do they have their turn signal on? Yes. Have they changed their position? Yes. Have they changed their speed? Yes. Then you can believe what you're seeing for a directional. But if you're answering no to any of those questions, then you probably should wait before you pull out in front of anybody. So in this case, it's a motorcycle. So be very suspect of a motorcyclist with a directional on. Following distance, like we said, could be the same 3 to 4 seconds, but they do stop better than us. They do change their position on the roadway just so they can be seen a little bit easier. So when you look in your rear view mirror, you think that they're messing with you, but a lot of times they're just doing that so you will look in your mirror and know that they're back there. Can't move next to them. Okay, they have that full width of the traffic lane. So when they're stopped in traffic, don't try to move to the left or to the right and squeeze in the same lane, especially if they're changing their position to give a little bit of room for you to be creeping up. You just aren't supposed to do that. A lot of times they're moving around a lot on their bike because there's something on the road that maybe we don't see, and they just don't want to hit it because it's going to create more of a problem for them than it would be for us because they're balancing on 2 wheels, whereas we're on 4. So potholes, railroad crossings that are the metal rails create a little bit of a problem, so they're going to try to go over them at a little bit of an angle. So they may be standing on their foot pegs as they go over. If there's any type of debris that has fallen off a truck and they can't avoid it, then they're going to go over it, pretty slow and maybe stand it up a little bit to give them a little bit better leverage. Bad weather, and surprisingly, motorcyclists will be out all 12 months. Even in the worst weather in the winter, they may be out. Now, they've got to make sure that they're not going to have a problem with traction, so it makes sense that they're going to have, hopefully, dry, cold pavement. But if snow or rain does start to fall, we know their vision problem, because they don't have a wiper on their shield, that they're not going to see very well. So their decision-making is not going to be as good as yours. At intersections and passing and things like that, motorcyclists are going to have some issues. Other areas where they're going to have problems is where there's a crosswind, a road surface, railroad crossings that we talked about. Metal bridges, as we said. Anything that's going to create a balance problem for a motorcyclist will not create a problem for you. So you may not even think about it when you're going over a metal bridge. But if you've got a motorcycle in front of you, start to think back. He may have a balance problem. He may slow down more than I would want him to, but it's because of his lack of balance. He's trying to regain control of the bike. So think of the way that they're going to think and how they're going to react in some of these situations. Here's the motorcycle course. Let's see I think this is the next one. Oh no, I don't have that one. Here's the motorcycle course. Let me show you this.
We really had fun taking the class. It was something that my husband and I did together, which made it even more special.
I thought, boy, this is going to be, why am I going to go do this? I've been riding so long, there's nothing I can, what are they going to teach me or what are they going to show me? And I was very shocked when I actually took it, and I learned quite a bit from that.
We got the club together and filled up a class, and, in varying level of experience from people who've been riding, 30 and 40 years. And every one of them, when we got done with the class, was worthwhile.
For my family, the very first step of getting into motorcycling was signing up for the motorcycle safety course. Because even before we went out to invest money in buying a motorcycle, it was important for us to learn the intricacies of riding the bike, and you certainly want to be prepared for the road risks.
Since taking that course and learning at least that one technique alone, it's probably saved my life at least 15 times.
I think that there's just as much value in the classroom as there was as physically being on the bike. So when you go out and you get on the bike, all that mental stuff is already in there.
The instructors were very friendly, and they didn't make you feel uncomfortable or weird that you hadn't ridden before. They just eased you right into it. They have you just kind of walking the bikes along as they're on, and you start going around in circles, then you progress into weaving in and out between cones.
And the instructor stood in front of the cones, and at the last moment, he would point left or right, and you had to do like an evasive move. It was just that last split second which way to turn. And if you make a mistake, then you learn from it.
He actually threw it was a piece of block on the ground, like a 2x4, and you actually, instead of going around it, go right through it. It just teaches you that if something's on a road and you're going like 55, 60, there's no sense of trying to go around it. You can't, because you ain't gonna have time to look left and right. Just go right straight through it.
You're constantly scanning ahead, and that's one of the things they teach you in the course. You are looking at the car in front of you, but you're actually looking further down. You're watching those intersections on your side. You know, and these are some of the things that that I never thought about, but the course talked about.
And all of a sudden, I start pulling around the curve, and another guy comes straight over. And if I would not have been aware, and again, this came from the course of being aware of everything that's happening around you, and I was able to stop. But if I'd have kept going, I would probably be a hood ornament at this point.
The maneuvering technique I did learn from the course did help me last year with the accident that I was in, that someone pulled out in front of me. And I was able to maneuver the bike to get around mostly, but the bike did clip the bumper a little bit. But still, I was able to get out unscratched and still walk away.
We're going through a small town, going 30 miles an hour, put my signal on to slow down, to stop, and the bike behind me slammed into me. The first thing I felt was this jerk, and then I heard the instructor's voice saying, hold on, keep the front tires straight, slowly apply your brakes, both the front and the rear brakes slowly, and bring the bike to a slow stop. And that's exactly what happened.
You think you know about bikes, but you do not know about bikes until you take the safety course. You do not know about all the different things that can come at you. You don't pay attention to that when you're just riding without the knowledge. So it can definitely save your life. It's a lifetime lesson that costs nothing.
So I think it's so important to get as much information about how to be a good driver of an automobile, how to be a good rider of a motorcycle. These are, grown-ups. These are people that have a license already, and they're saying that they're learning a lot. And that's the whole thing. You always want to be better at doing something. And how can you do that? You can do it from reading. I mean, reading is important, but I think when you get into a course like this that we're having, or this motorcycle class, it really challenges you to really think about not the obvious, but things that are a little bit more involved, that are kind of on the outskirts of our mind, that we don't give a lot of attention to until somebody tells us to pay more attention to it and why it should be done. And I highly recommend the motorcycle course here in New Hampshire. They have two courses. One is for novice riders, the other is for experienced riders. And it's like a 2-day event. I think they meet for like 4 hours on a Friday, in the evening or early evening. And then they meet on a Saturday, or it could be Saturday and Sunday. I'm not too sure about the setup. They do provide the motorcycle for you, so if you don't have one right now, they will give one to you to use. And then I want you to write down the very bottom bullet right here. You will be exempt from taking the state skills test if you take the motorcycle course. And I think it's around $225, $250, I think, is the motorcycle course, which is kind of cool. I think that it's important to get your operator's license first and then go for your motorcycle, because you're really learning like the basic rules of yielding and signs and things like that. And once you've got that, then it's going to be a lot easier taking a course like this. Now, when you see the word endorsement, it says you're exempt from taking the state skills test for a license or endorsement. An endorsement is a permit. So as I said earlier, they're not going to sit in the back of the motorcycle and watch you ride. So if you don't take this course, do you still have to get tested? Yes, you do. You have to go to the state DMV substation, and they put you on a course, and they watch you move, making left-hand turns, right-hand turns, stopping, your balance, your speed. But they allow you to get out on the road for, I believe, a couple weeks before you go for the motorcycle test. So you would send away for an endorsement or a permit. This will allow you to go out on the road on your own because you already have your driver's license, so they know you understand the rules of the road. So at your own risk of how you operate the bike, they're going to let you be out there on the road for just a little bit and then going for the state test to say that you're legal and you can do it now full time. So that is the motorcycle course. The other thing about animals, and we talked about bear, moose, turkeys, foxes, things like that you could hit. It's going to be very detrimental to you if you come across any type of animal while you're on a motorcycle. So I wanted to show you this. Someone put a GoPro on their motorcycle. This is what happened one day. Kind of amazing that he's able to get right up and move along, and also the deer didn't look to be too hurt. But if you're on a motorcycle, it's going to usually be worse than that. It's going to be pretty bad. It's going to be pretty bad. All right, let's talk about bicycles. For most of you, this was probably your mode of transportation over the last 4 or 5 years to get to friends' houses, to get to sporting events, go to baseball practice or something in the summertime. It's good for you to understand what are bicycle rules, because most people just go with what they feel is right rather than what they know is right. So let's go over some of the specific rules that New Hampshire has, and I believe they've been adopted in other states too, about what to do on a bicycle. So this is what I want you to know for the final, and that's the second bullet. You must be at least 3 feet from a bicyclist. And for every 10 miles over the speed limit, you have to give an extra foot. That is going to be a safe distance. More is better, but the minimum is 3 feet. So when passing a bike, every driver of a vehicle shall exercise due care by leaving reasonable and prudent distance between the vehicle and the bicycle. Now at the very bottom here it says if there is no room, you must wait till traffic has gone by before passing. So what I want you to write down is the word separate. When you are approaching a bicyclist and there's an oncoming car coming towards you, there's a good chance to give that bicyclist the 3 feet distance. You're going to be on the yellow line or over the yellow line. You do not really want to be between the bicyclist and the oncoming car at the same time. So I mean that you could actually, on the passenger side, reach out and almost touch the bicyclist, or as the driver, you can reach out from the window and touch the car that's going by you. You don't want to have both of them next to you at the same time. So by separating, you're staying behind the bicyclist until the oncoming car or cars go by you. Then you're checking your mirrors, you're going over the center line slightly, so you're going far left, and you're going by the cyclist. So here's a question. What do you do if you're coming up to the top of a hill or around a corner and there's a bicyclist right in front of you? You don't have enough time to slow down, to stay behind him. You've got to kind of go by him. But there's a car coming towards you. This is the term I want you to write down. It's called compromise. Write down compromise. What compromise means is that you're giving equal distance between the bicyclist and the car at the same time. So you're giving 3 feet to the bicyclist, and you're hoping that the car moves a little bit right of center, and you've got 3 feet from his side mirror. So you got 3 feet on either side. That's called compromise. But basically, you want to try to separate. That's our main goal. That's what we want to accomplish. Let's take a look at bike safety. Now, one of the let's see, where did I, oh, here's bikes. They're also including motorcycles here.
Thousands of Californians who ride bicycles or motorcycles are killed or injured in collisions with motorists. Sometimes the cause is the cyclist's behavior. Sometimes it's the motorist's lack of attention. Let's look at some safety tips for sharing the road with bicycles and motorcycles. First of all, as a motorist, you must keep in mind that bicycle and motorcycle riders have the same rights and responsibilities as vehicle drivers while on public roads. Respect their right-of-way because they are entitled to share the road with you. Look carefully for cyclists before making turns, merging into traffic, changing lanes, or when opening doors next to moving traffic. Look over your shoulder and use mirrors before changing lanes. Motorcycles can come into your lane within seconds, which is why looking over your shoulder is essential each time you change lanes. Road hazards such as potholes, gravel, wet surfaces, pavement seams, and railroad crossings pose hazards to cyclists. They may cause them to vary their speed, change direction, or fall suddenly. Drive attentively and be aware of how these conditions affect cyclists. Statistics show that a high percentage of injury collisions are caused by failing to yield the right-of-way to cyclists. Remember, courtesy and common sense promote traffic safety for all, so here's what you can do to help prevent collisions at intersections or roundabouts. Make a visual check and use your mirrors and turn signals before entering an intersection or roundabout. Look for that bicycle or motorcycle rider that just might be in your blind spot. Bicyclists are even more difficult to see and can easily disappear in vehicle blind spots. Follow the right-of-way rules. Remember to yield to any vehicle already in the intersection or arriving first, or to the vehicle on the right that reaches the intersection at the same time as you. This includes bicycle and motorcycle riders. Never assume cyclists will give you the right-of-way. Here are some tips when passing cyclists. Try to avoid passing cyclists on two-lane roads. If you must pass, be patient and pass cyclists on the left when it's safe. As you pass, allow safe clearance between you and the cyclist. Don't squeeze cyclists off the road. Remember, they have just as much right to be there as you do. On freeways, you will at times find a special lane called a high occupancy vehicle or HOV lane. Motorcycles are allowed to ride in these lanes and may very well pass you, so be on the lookout for them. Check your blind spot. The roads are crowded enough, so the best way to prevent a collision is to distance yourself from other vehicles and cyclists. This gives you more time to react and space to maneuver. Allow a cyclist a full lane width. Although it is not illegal to share lanes with cyclists, it is not safe. Allow a 4-second following distance for motorcyclists. You will need this space to avoid collision should the rider fall. Never drive your vehicle in the bicycle lanes. The only exception is when making a right turn. You must be within 200 feet of the corner or a driveway entrance before you can merge into the bicycle lane. Also, do not speed up to overtake a bicycle just before making a right turn. Merge into the turning lane behind the bicyclist, then make the turn. When using a turning lane, watch for bicycles making left and right turns. They are required to use the same turning lanes as vehicles. Look for any hand signals from the bicyclists that indicate they're turning or making a lane change. One final thing you may not be aware of. Bicycles and motorized bicycles are lawfully allowed to ride on certain sections of freeways when there's no alternate route available to them and when signs are posted. As a motorist, remember to keep in mind that bicycle and motorcycle riders have the same rights and responsibilities as vehicle drivers while on public roads. They are entitled to share the road with you, so please respect their right-of-way. Make the roads a safer place for everyone.
So you can see where checking your mirrors is so important, and also your position in regards to where the bicyclist is, whether you're going into the bike lane or not. So really a lot of decision making has to go into play when you're in a heavy traffic area around a bicycle. Do I stay behind? Do I go up around them? When do I go into the bike lane? It's very important that you start thinking about these things the minute you see a bicyclist up ahead, you start thinking about what your options and your choices are. You don't want to get up to a traffic light or to where you have to make a turn and just hope you're hoping that you're doing it right. You've got to know. You've got to know. So as we saw in the video, they have to obey the same rules as other drivers. They should always use their hand signals, and you should be familiar with a hand signal, what it looks like. Two abreast means side by side. They shouldn't be holding up traffic. So if they are holding up traffic, they should go back to single filing and riding. It's against the law. Most people don't realize this, but it is against the law to ride your bike on a sidewalk. Anything with wheels, write this down, anything with wheels needs to be on the roadway. So skateboards, rollerbladers, bicycles, all on the road. Should never hang on to the back of a vehicle. You should, just like a car, yield to pedestrians. So if they're getting ready to cross a road, you don't want to buzz by them. You've got to yield the right of way to them. Don't carry a passenger unless you have a seat attached, because it's going to make operating the bicyclist a little bit more difficult. Never carry anything that will interfere with the control of a bike, and you should always go in the same direction that vehicles are going. Bikes are supposed to have reflectors so they're seen. They should have brakes that are strong enough to hold them to stop with one wheel. The only thing I want you to write down in the last two bullets is that people under 16 have to have head protection, so some type of headgear. And then the last bullet here saying that a bicyclist shall wear at least one item of reflective clothing, so a vest, jacket, helmet, strip, and the time frame is the same as when you have your headlights on, a half hour after sunset to a half hour before sunrise. So that's a new law. They just put that into effect probably in the last 3 years or so. So let's talk a little bit about pedestrians. Now, we're finding an upswing with vehicle pedestrian fatalities. I was just looking at some statistics, and it's really surprising that because most people are not working and they're staying home, even though the number of people are less out on the roadway, the speeding tickets are up, and fatalities in cars and pedestrian fatalities are up since the first of the year. So it's kind of shocking. And this probably has more to do with people feel there aren't many people on the road, so I can look at my phone more, I can be distracted, I can go faster, all negative aspects of being a good driver. And we'll talk more about distracted driving tomorrow. So remember, pedestrians have the right of way when they're in the crosswalk. So that means if any portion of their body is in on the roadway, you've got to do everything possible to give them the right of way. Now, I know sometimes they'll step out when they shouldn't, so pedestrians have to take some care before they step out. But as you're driving, look up ahead. Where are the crosswalks? Are there people waiting? Are there people approaching? What should I do if they're approaching and I'm approaching? You should probably wait. If there's any question, if there's any doubt, you should probably wait. Are people crossing at a sidewalk alley, driveway? Are you dealing with someone that has some type of vision impairment? Are they with a guide dog, or do they have a cane? All these things you have to be thinking about. Now, blind people, and I want you to underline, or you don't have your manual because this isn't in the new manual, but what I want you to write down, that for most people, you should be about a 10-foot distance from the crosswalk if the person is blind. Especially if you're in a hybrid or a car that turns off when it stops, they're not going to be able to sense that you're trying to cross as a blind person. So a car has to stay back far enough that they feel comfortable before they step out. That's why they're not stepping out, is that you're a little bit too close and they're not quite sure what to do. So pedestrians should use crosswalks. They shouldn't be jaywalking. A lot of people ask, well, what happens if someone jaywalks? Am I at fault? Well, if you could have done something to prevent hitting them, yeah, you probably are. But a pedestrian is supposed to use due care before they step out onto the roadway. Okay, there's an echo. All right. I'll try to turn things down a little bit. There we go. Okay, hopefully that's better. Thanks for telling me that. Look both directions before crossing. So walk on the left side facing oncoming traffic. Observe and obey the walk, do not walk signals if you're a pedestrian. And at night, always wear some type of light clothing and carry a light. And never walk on an interstate or limited access highway, only if it's necessary. And like we said before, you should have your phone. You should be calling for help. Call your parents or call AAA. Okay, this isn't something that you should be doing. So you've got to think, as a pedestrian, can I make things easier for drivers? You're not trying to make things more complicated. And you'd be surprised. The reason why there are so many fatalities now with pedestrians is because the pedestrian is looking down at their phone, they're distracted, and guess what? The driver is too. Let's take a look at a young person that's being distracted and how he's dealing with a pedestrian.
Chris, watch out!
I'll never forget that day. The week before graduation, we were so excited. You see headlines about people getting hit, and you never think it could be you or your friends. A split second. I looked away for a split second, and that's all it took. Every day I see that same kid, and every day I think about what could have happened. I swore I would never put anyone in that situation again. It wasn't so long ago I was walking to school. I made mistakes then too, but now that I'm driving a few tons of steel, I owe it to those children to be cautious, to know the law, and drive defensively. After all, I'm still a pedestrian too. When I'm walking to my car or across campus, you never know what you're getting into. But you can look for clues that pedestrians may be present. Crosswalks, pedestrian crossing signs, intersections, or someone simply standing at the curb. When a pedestrian is in a mid-block crosswalk or you're making a turn on a green light, they have the right of way. Also, pedestrians have the right of way at unmarked crosswalks, where a sidewalk ends at a street with no traffic signals. Think of the sidewalk as extending into the roadway. You can't always predict what other drivers are going to do either. I've had people go around me when I stop for someone in the crosswalk. These days, I don't just stop. I keep my eyes open for kids darting into traffic, coming from all different angles. You never know. Kids can be unpredictable, so expect the unexpected. Like here. Kids cross here all the time. They can't see me, and I can't see them. That's why I go extra slow. I used to think it was cool to goof off when I was driving. I thought I was a good driver, even though I thought it was okay to use my phone or text or make a quick call. But that was before I realized how easy it is to hit someone, maybe kill someone. I don't want that hanging over my head for the rest of my life. I've got other things to worry about now, like college, and finding a parking spot.
And it's true. It's as simple as taking your focus away from the road for just a moment, because a lot of pedestrians will actually walk between cars. And that's the hard part as a driver. How are you going to pick up the people that are hidden? So you really got to go slow in a high traffic area, meaning not only cars traffic, but pedestrian traffic. Look for your signs, like they said in the video. Look for those neon yellow signs. Look for your crosswalks. Remember, you've got to search out where you think your problems are going to be. You've got to stay on top of everything. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to train kids at a very young age of how to cross the road. So it's very important that you take extra care where you think things are going to be complicated. So, and not everybody is paying attention. Here's another training video for pedestrians.
This is the intersection of Forest Hill Boulevard and Military Trail. What we're doing here, this is a combined event between the Palm Springs Police Department, Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office, the Department of Transportation, and the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We're here on a grant from the University of South Florida and DOT. We're promoting safety for pedestrians and safety for bicyclists, and raising awareness for vehicles in the intersection and pedestrian rights.
What are you going to do if you see that red hand? Are you going to go? No, you don't go. What color are you waiting for?
White.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, here's the bag here. So we're going to know, and you stay on that crosswalk, okay? Great job.
When a pedestrian is crossing a street that is controlled by lights and a crossing signal, the pedestrian has to wait for the signal to change from a red hand to a white walking pedestrian. The person will then have approximately 38 seconds to cross the street. They have to do so within the crosswalk in the allotted amount of time. For a pedestrian and or bicyclist not using the crosswalk, the fine is $64.50. If you don't cross within the crosswalk, motorists are not going to expect you to be there at that specific point of the roadway, and that's where the vehicles have the right of way. In the intersections and the crosswalks, the pedestrian has the right of way. Bicyclists, when they're on the sidewalk, have the same responsibility as a pedestrian. At nighttime, they have to have a white light on the front of the bicycle, and they have to have a red light to the rear of the bicycle. The biggest problem I see with bicyclists is as they're riding on the sidewalk and or the bicycle lane, they just decide to change lanes in the middle of the road, or they don't wait for the light to change and they just dart across the road. If they're in the roadway, believe it or not, a bicyclist has to obey all the traffic laws as a motor vehicle does. If they are using a motorized bicycle or a scooter on the sidewalk, the fine is actually $166 and 3 points on a license. Wait for the light to cycle where it's safe for you to cross. Cross only when that pedestrian signal indicates you to cross. Don't cross in the mid-block where cars are not going to expect you to cross. That's where a lot of people are getting hit. What we see a lot in this intersection here is people will get off the bus, they'll wait for the bus to leave, and they dart across the street. Now here they're darting across 6 lanes of a highly used highway to get to the other bus stop, which is on the other side of the road. It's not safe. It's very dangerous. This is where we get people killed.
Anything you'd like to add?
Just be safe and be seen.
Good to know that somebody's helping us out, you know, because we almost get hit daily on the road riding our bikes from to work. So it's a nice thing that you guys are out here.
I kind of like what they said at the end is be safe and be seen. you have to make sure that people see you. And I thought it was kind of interesting that it's not a little fine. Most of these infractions, it's quite a bit of money. You've got to know what your responsibility is as a pedestrian and as a driver, or it's going to get costly. The other thing about pedestrian crossing, just a reminder, you cannot turn right on a red light with a countdown. This is the biggest problem. A lot of people see that there are no signs indicating where it's not illegal, and then they feel that they can still turn right on red as long as they don't run over a pedestrian. No, that's not the case. If there's a pedestrian with a countdown, you can't cut in front of him. He's got the whole time limit of that countdown before you can turn right on red. So you've got to make sure that you've got the solid hand before you turn right on red. Now, the last two things I want to talk about before I let you go for today, write down the move over law, and this is in every state, so I will test you on this. It's very important to understand that when there's an emergency vehicle that has pulled somebody over, or if there's a fire truck or an EMT coming behind you, you are supposed to move over away from where they're coming from as far as you possibly can. In this video clip, you're going to see a police officer being hit as he's giving a ticket to a person that's pulled over on the side of the road. So watch real careful when you see this, okay? So watch this.
Every year, thousands of law enforcement officers are injured or killed by passing vehicles on our nation's roads and highways. These tragedies don't have to happen. Whenever an emergency vehicle has its lights on, move over away from the emergency vehicle. If you can't change lanes because of traffic, or if you're traveling on a 2-lane road, slow down at least 20 miles per hour below the posted speed limit.
Help protect the officers who protect you. Please move over, and if you can't, then slow down. It's the law.
A lot of people think that the police officer that's giving the ticket to somebody, if I get too close to him, if I don't really move over to the other lane, what's the big deal? I'm not going to get in trouble. I have heard from police officers that have told me that they leave the person they're giving a ticket to and they go after the person that has buzzed too close by them. They get aggravated by this. And if they can write down your license plate number, they can come after you later. Okay, so be courteous, be kind. Slow down, check your mirror, move over as far as you can. So here's some keys to think about. Maintain a slower speed. So the minute you see the emergency vehicle up ahead, slow down, check your mirrors, and start thinking about moving over. If there's anybody giving you direction, any type of official with a hand signal, a flashlight, or anything, obey what they're telling you to do. Now, when it says vacate any lane, wholly or partially, wholly, of course, you're leaving the entire lane. Partially means, yeah, you're still going to have part of your car in your original lane. That's okay, as long as you're moving over as far as you can. And always give as much room as you possibly can, if it's tight, to any person, police officer, anybody that's working on a fire truck or an ambulance. Give them as much room, because a lot of times they're not checking to see where they're stepping or how close they're getting out into traffic. It becomes our responsibility. So those are the things that I want you to remember about these vehicles that you've got to share on the roadway. So that's today. That's today's lesson of sharing the road with tractor trailers, motorcycles, bicycles, and pedestrians. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to be talking about distracted driving. So here's your homework. I didn't really list too much on the sheet here. It just says a texting article. So this is what I want you to do. Is I want you to go online and find an article about someone that was distracted and had some type of incident, whether it was injuring somebody, killing somebody, or they were just cited for a violation of texting and driving. So we're going to talk about what's the penalties, what are happening to these people out on the roadway. Are they really causing that much damage on the roadway? So I want you to give me a response, find the article, and I want you to give me a paragraph of a response of what you think they could have done differently for this not to happen. Okay, what should they have been doing? What are the steps that they could have done about reading a message or sending out a message? Should be pretty easy to do. If we have time, we'll start getting into road rage at the end of tomorrow. If not, that will leak into Wednesday's class, which is a review. And then Thursday, we will do the test. I'm not going to do it on the 18th because we did have somebody drop out of class, so I can do it on Thursday. For those of you that weren't with us at the beginning of today's section, we are going to meet Saturday at 9:30 to hand in your textbook. I will also give you a sheet that you're going to have your parents fill out for your observation that you're going to do with them. Hopefully this week, maybe we'll get some news on when I'm going to be able to drive. But we're going to try to get the rest of the classroom done this week rather than let it go into Monday. I mean, you could text me and let me know if you'd rather do it on Monday. I guess I could give you the weekend if you want. But we are going to hand the textbooks in on Saturday because I do need that, okay? Because I do have a new class starting next week, and I've got to get things ready for them. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. I apologize for the person that jumped in. I thought that they were part of class, maybe under a different name. They asked a decent question about lane splitting, which I will try to show you tomorrow. Thanks again for letting me know that there's an echo. And one last thing. The very last question on your test that I gave you that you had to do online, some of you still haven't done it, so make sure that you do that so I can log it in. For those that took the test early, the last question, the answer was wrong. Okay, it wasn't 1 second. It was something different. So I went in and corrected, so it will show up on your score. But if I'm not perfect, and I don't mind admitting that there was something wrong, so I just didn't save it when I built the test, so I apologize on that question. But thanks for bringing it to my attention. So that's heads up for who did that. I think it was Short Tyler. He's the one that brought it to my attention. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.